There's a moment that happens to a lot of people who live alone long enough. It's not dramatic, no crisis, no breakdown. You're standing in the kitchen late one evening, spoon in hand, eating straight out of the jar, peanut butter, cold soup, something that doesn't even feel like a meal anymore. And suddenly you pause. Not because it tastes bad, but because you realize no one would ever know if this became your normal. You laugh it off, make a joke to the empty room, maybe even talk to the TV like it's listening. And then, just for a second, a quieter thought slips in. Is this just what happens when you live alone too long? Living alone later in life can feel like freedom. No schedules to negotiate, no compromises, no explanations. But freedom has a shadow side. Without noticing, small habits start replacing meaningful ones. You stop setting the table, stop opening the front door unless you have to, stop doing certain things simply because there's no one around to witness them. Nothing feels wrong, and that's the danger. Because life doesn't collapse, it contracts. It gets narrower, quieter, more efficient. Until one day you realize your world hasn't gotten smaller because of age or health or circumstance. It shrank because no one stopped it from shrinking. Tonight, this isn't about fear, and it's not about loneliness in the dramatic sense. It's about the subtle traps that sneak into daily life when you live alone in your 60s, 70s, and beyond. The ones that slowly drain joy, dull curiosity, and make days blur together. Not the obvious ones, the quiet ones. And if any part of your world has started to feel a little too small lately, this conversation is for you. 1. When meals stop feeling like life. There was a man in his early 70s who used to build things with his hands. Strong hands, precise hands. The kind that could fix a hinge by feel alone. But after his wife died, those hands stopped cooking. Not overnight. Slowly. First, the recipes disappeared. Then the stove stayed cold. Eventually, meals became whatever required the least effort. Crackers, peanut butter, soup eaten straight from the can. One afternoon, someone stopped by unexpectedly and found him standing in the kitchen, spooning cold soup without bothering to heat it. When asked why, he shrugged. "What's the point," he said, "when it's just me?" And that question, what's the point, is where something vital begins to slip away. Meals aren't just fuel, they're markers in the day. They divide time. They invite pause. They say, this moment matters enough to stop for. When you stop cooking, stop sitting down, stop using a plate, days lose their punctuation. Morning bleeds into afternoon. Afternoon drifts into evening. Life starts feeling less lived and more endured. Later, someone invited that same man over for a simple lunch. Nothing impressive. Grilled cheese, soup, a cold drink. But when the plate was set in front of him, he paused, looked down, and quietly said, "I forgot this feeling." Even alone, meals deserve care. Sit down, use the plate, light the candle if you want, not because anyone is watching, but because you are. 2. When the TV becomes a roommate. There's comfort in the sound of voices filling a quiet house. Familiar faces, predictable endings. The television doesn't demand anything. It just stays. At first, it's background noise. Morning news while coffee brews. A show running while laundry gets folded. But slowly, it stops turning off. Days pass with the screen glowing from sunrise to nightfall. Not watched, inhabited. Silence becomes something to avoid, because silence asks questions. What do I want to do today? What am I avoiding? The TV makes time disappear politely. Hours slip by unnoticed. You don't realize how long you've been sitting until the light outside changes. Turning the TV into an event instead of a constant shifts something back. Choosing what to watch, letting it end. Sitting with the quiet afterward, because the quiet isn't empty. it's yours. 3. When the front door stops opening. There's a difference between staying in and never going out. One woman, well into her 80s, stopped opening her front door except when absolutely necessary. Groceries arrived, prescriptions came by mail. The world no longer required her presence. Weeks passed without stepping outside. One spring morning, she opened the door just to let air in. Sunlight touched her face. A breeze moved through the hallway. A child rode past on a bicycle and waved. She waved back. That small exchange did more than she expected, because the door isn't just an exit, it's a connection. When you stop opening it, the world starts feeling like it moved on without you. Even if you don't leave, open the door. Let the day acknowledge you. 4. When I'm too old becomes a rule. I'm too old sounds reasonable, responsible, wise. But most of the time, it's fear speaking quietly. Fear of looking foolish. Fear of failing. Fear of being the oldest one trying. A man in his late 70s once decided to try something completely new. Not because he was confident, but because he was curious. He fell. He struggled. He laughed at himself. And he kept going. Aging doesn't remove possibility. It removes the need for permission. You don't stop because you can't. You stop because you decide not to begin. Growth doesn't require youth, only willingness. 5. When one room becomes your whole world. Comfort gathers you into smaller spaces. It starts innocently. The bedroom is warmer, the chair is closer. Everything you need is within reach. Before long, the rest of the house goes quiet. Rooms become storage. Tables become unused surfaces. You're not living in your home anymore. You're camping in one corner of it. Space affects spirit. Movement through your home mirrors movement through life. Small changes reopen that space. Coffee at the table. Reading by the window. Music in another room. Your home was meant to hold a life, not just a resting place. 6. When routine gets misunderstood. Routine is often mistaken for stagnation, but routine is rhythm. One man began every morning the same way. Coffee, a chair by the window, 10 minutes watching birds. When asked why, he said it grounded him. No matter what changed, that moment stayed. Routine doesn't dull joy, it steadies it. And when it feels stale, you don't abandon it. You play with it. Change the tea, walk a new street, dance while cleaning. Routine says, I'm still here. I'll be here again tomorrow. 7. When you stop seeing yourself. There's a quiet shift when people stop looking at themselves, really looking. Not vanity, presence. When care feels unnecessary, when effort feels pointless, when mirrors become something you pass without noticing. One older man once said, "The day I stopped looking at myself was the day I started disappearing." Dignity isn't about impressing anyone, it's about acknowledging your own existence. Comb your hair, wear something that feels like you, meet your reflection and don't look away. That face holds a lifetime. It deserves to be seen. 8. When memories turn into a museum. Some homes become shrines. Every surface holds the past. Every room whispers what once was. Beautiful and heavy. One woman realized she had stopped using an entire room because it belonged to someone who never came back. She said quietly, "I think I turned my house into a museum." Memories are meant to travel with you, not trap you. You can honor the past without freezing your present. Keep the keepsakes, carry the love, but make room for what's next. 9. When you think you've finished growing. The lie about aging is that life becomes maintenance, but growth doesn't stop. It changes shape. Curiosity replaces ambition. Presence replaces urgency. An older man once learned a new language just to surprise his family. A woman picked up digital drawing in her late 70s because it made her feel like a child again. Growth belongs to the willing. When you believe there's still something ahead, even something small, you keep looking forward. And that is a quiet, defiant kind of life. 10. A final turn toward intention. Living alone doesn't mean something is missing. It means something is being entrusted to you. Your time, your space, your attention. What you do with them shapes how life feels from here forward. Living alone doesn't mean living less, but it does require intention. Open the door, set the table, look in the mirror, try something unfamiliar. You're still here, still unfolding, still capable of surprise. And as long as that's true, the story isn't over yet.